Welcome back everyone. Today, different type of video. Today we're going to be going over all of the key transfers from every single club in the Premier League over this January window. We're going to be rating how well everyone's done, any improvements that they could have made, and that's pretty much it. So let's get straight into it. The first club, we're going to go through these alphabetically, starting with Arsenal. Definitely not the type of transfer window that we were all looking forward to as Arsenal fans. Not a single player has been brought in during this window. Right, where do we begin with this? We go back to December. Bukayo Saka gets injured. Our star player, our most creative attacking outlet, the guy that's been carrying us for a couple of years, realistically now. He gets injured, and straight away you can see we are lacking in those wide areas. Martinelli, Trossard, as well as a shift that they've been putting in, you can clearly see that there is quality lacking there. And so instantly, the main thing was that we needed to really reinforce in the wide area as a backup. Ethan Nwaneri, he's come in, of course, and he's done honestly an excellent job as an 18-year-old to come into the Premier League games, even the Champions League games, contributing with goals and assists. He's essentially been almost like a new signing, but still the club not investing in a wide player. I mean, it's just not good enough. And I think if we're serious about competing this season for the title, bearing in mind, if Liverpool do win on Wednesday against Everton, we will only be 9 points behind. And 9 points may seem like quite a lot, but results can flip really quickly. And who knows, a loss against Everton, suddenly it's 6. We could really make a push. But I think with the lack of that quality, that lack of star player bringing in on the wide sides, I think that's really going to really cost us. And another key area, the striker. No striker is... I mean, we've been crying out for a striker, right, for definitely last year, last 2 years even. We've been needing one for a while. And don't get me wrong, I actually really like Havertz. But the truth is, when we saw against City, that chance that he had in the first half, that any clinical striker, you're putting that away. And then those are the key moments, I think, during the course of a season where missing those chances can be really, really costly. And I think with a quality striker, we simply get more goals, and goals is ultimately what wins you games. So I think the failure of getting a proper number 9 in this January, and I'm not saying we should have completely broken a bank for like a Sesko or for an Isak, who Isak realistically wouldn't leave Newcastle in January, but to not even get anyone. And there were options out there, and we'll discuss that as we go further through the videos, looking at what some of the other teams have signed. It's just not a great window for Arsenal at all, and it does worry me. It does worry me because let's say if Havertz, as much as he is criticised for missing chances, if he is to get injured between now and the end of the season, who do we have to replace him? Who can actually play as our striker right now? I think we've got, apart from him, one other recognised striker in the entire squad, and that is the youngster Nathan Butler-Oyedeji, who just made his debut for 2 minutes against Zagreb in the Champions League a couple of weeks ago now. If Havertz was to get injured, we've actually got no striker at the club. Of course, Jesus being injured as well, that just did not help. And I think that his injury was the main one that it cemented the fact that we need another attacking option, because losing Saka, bad enough as it is, but then losing Jesus as well, say what you want about him, how good or how poor he has been, he is still a recognised striker who can chip in with goals, and he showed that against Palace when he did come back from injury. Now, him being gone, that is another big miss. So the fact that we've not reinforced in that area, is simply not good enough from the club. It's not good enough. It's clear we needed that. And if we do go on to not win the title this year because we've I don't know, lost by 1 or 2 points or something, then serious questions need to be asked of the board for not backing the manager now in January. So yeah, ultimately the lack of another attacking option could be the real difference in Liverpool winning the title this season. So all in all, you have to give, if I was to rate the Arsenal window, a 0 out of 10. I mean, yeah, to not bring in anyone. They had a whole month to get just one attacking player in, and they failed to do that. I think us as the fans and the squad itself, I mean, the players out there, even you saw a few of the interviews where even Rice mentioned that we do need a striker. Yeah, the club, we've been let down by the club. That's the fans and the players. So genuinely can't give anything better than a 0. Not even recalling any loan options like Reece Nelson, who I know might be currently injured right now, but still, maybe that's something that we look to do later on. But absolutely no excuse to be this poor in the window. And I think that bid for Ollie Watkins, I think that was never going to happen. It was one of those, I think, where the board have said, look, we've tried to make a bid and it's not gone our way. I think it was a petty bid, because all along, I'm pretty sure Villa knew that John Duran was going to be leaving. And if Duran was to leave, no chance are they selling Watkins along with him. So I think genuinely a very petty bid from Arsenal. And yeah, honestly, we've just been let down. So Arsenal get a 0 out of 10. Right, moving on to probably the most active team in this transfer window, from the least active to the most active. We've got Aston Villa, right? Looking at their key signings, the main ones, of course, Daniel Malin, 20 million from Dortmund. I mean, he is a good player. He's got pace, of course, as his main attribute. Does he lack a little bit with his finishing? Potentially, but I don't think that he's been brought in to be that clinical finisher. They've got Watkins in that position. I think he's been brought in just to cause defenses problems. He's that type of player, and with his pace, can hurt anyone. Not to say his finishing isn't good, because it certainly is, but it's not to that elite standard. But for 20 million, honestly, I think that's a very, very good signing for Villa. Moving on to the next main one, Marcus Rashford on loan. Right, what do you even make of this one? It's tough, isn't it? Because everybody in the Premier League knows that on his day, Marcus Rashford could be one of the best players in the league. That's true on his day. However, we have not seen. Trying to look and think back to the last big performance from him. I can't remember. And yeah, far too inconsistent. That's always been his major issue. Of course, injuries haven't helped him, but yeah, his lack of consistency has been the main struggle. And yeah, I think a little bit of a falling out there with Amorim. Apparently, he's not been working hard enough in training. It will be interesting to see how and if his mentality does shift when he's at Villa, a new club, or if he carries on to be, that player that does get a little bit too big for his boots. It'll be interesting, because like I say, he could be a very good signer for them, or it could go down the other way. End of the day, it is a loan, so Villa aren't really taking too big a risk. And yeah, United getting rid of him also. I mean, United, what have they really got to play for this season? They're in the Europa League, I believe. Yeah, they are in the Europa League. So maybe they are missing out on Rashford in that sense. But yeah, Amorim's made it clear that he does not want players in his squad that are not giving 100% every time in training. And yeah, clearly that seems to be the issue. So Marcus Rashford to Villa, that will be an interesting one. Next up, another attacking player for Villa, which I believe was done on deadline day. Marco Asensio from PSG, another loan player. Arsenal are actually linked with him, although I feel like we are linked with half of the transfer market this window. Asensio, this is a strange one for me because he's shown he can be good, of course, in the past. How old is he now, actually? He's 29, so he's technically had his peak already. And he's been always a good player, right? But he's never been like there at the world class, and whether he can do something for Villa or not, it will be interesting, because do you see him even starting in that team? You look at the front four for Villa. I mean, you'll have Watkins, of course, as the main striker. Rodgers or in the middle on the left side. McGinn plays in an advanced role. They've got Leon Bailey there. I mean, they've got options. Does Asensio get into the starting team? I think he's more been brought in for the Champions League games as well, help with squad depth. So overall, I think that is a pretty good signing for Villa. Just to help them with that squad depth. And yeah, whether he can make a real impact in the Premier League or not, we'll see. But yeah, Marco Asensio to Villa. That is another one done for them. And then we've got another one. It does not finish for Villa. They've got quite a few more actually. Louis Barry, recalled from loan, which if you guys do know about him, he has looked quite good. But he's been recalled from Stockport. Some Andres Garcia, I'm not sure exactly who that is, brought in from Levante, no disclosed fee at the moment. And Axel Disasi has been brought in to bolster up the back line for Villa. That is probably one of those signings that's been done due to Tyrone Mings. He got injured the other week, so I think he's there for one of those reasons. But my question is Disasi, is he that good a player? Especially for Villa standards. Villa are a team right now looking, of course, to get into the Champions League. They've not been that great in the league so far this season. Of course, they're doing well in the Champions League, but they're looking to secure that top 4 spot. And do I think that Disasi is a top 4 quality centre-back? I don't think he is. Yeah, so even if he was to start some of those games for Villa, does that improve the team? I'm not sure that it does completely. And yeah, any time a centre-back's brought in on loan, it can be difficult to get them to fit in straight away, because, you know, a back line, you need to be organised, you need to have that chemistry amongst yourself. And yeah, bringing in a player from another club that's not used to the system that Unai Emery is going to be playing, it will be a little bit of a difficult one, I think. But once again, it is a lone player. I think he's just there to help out with that squad depth. So I don't think that Villa fans will have much of a complaint with that. Of course, players that they've sold, we'll just go through some of the notable ones because they've got quite a few. John Duran, the biggest one, 64 million they've got for him. There's been quite a lot of people talking about how John Duran has made the wrong decision going to Saudi at such a young age. But what you have to think about with some of these players, right? They've come from nothing, and if you've gone from that to earning 50 grand a week, which, don't get me wrong, a lot of money at Villa, but then to be offered to A, live in Saudi, B, play with Ronaldo, which a lot of these players would have looked up to when they were younger, and C, earn however much he's earning now, it is hard to turn that down. And who knows, like, he could get injured in the next couple of years if he was to still play at Villa. Let's say he does his ACL, he never gets back to the level that he can show, and all of a sudden this deal is completely off the table forever, you know. So it's definitely a chance that I feel like you can't blame a player for taking. And yeah, at the end of the day, Villa have got quite a large lump sum for that. So I think for Duran and for Villa, that is a win-win. But it is a shame to see him not be able to then compete at the elite level, the highest leagues for the next few years, because he is a real player. So I guess as football fans, we are missing out a little bit. But moving on, Jaden Philogene, not seen much of him, but he's gone to Ipswich. I believe that's been permanent now. I think he was on loan earlier or something, but that is permanent. 20 million done. Like I say, I've not seen too much of him. He looks like a decent player. Probably there, just to help Ipswich try to stay up. Diego Carlos to Fenerbahce for 10 million. That I didn't even know about. That is a surprising one. I remember when he got brought in from Sevilla, I believe. I think he came for like 35, 40 million. He was meant to be like one of the next good up-and-coming centre-backs. It just hasn't worked out for him. He's had his injury problems too. But just hasn't worked out for him. So he's gone. And then they've also loaned out a bunch of players. So overall, Aston Villa, they've been probably the most active team in this window. They have brought in high quality players in Marlon, Rashford to some extent if it works out for him. Asensio could be good too. Disasi, who knows? And they've also sold quite a lot. Yeah, I mean, they've bolstered up at the end of the day. Whether the quality of players is first team to be starting week in, week out, I don't think so. And for that reason, I think I'm going to give Villa probably an 8 out of 10. They've been busy. They've done business. But will the players that they've brought in really help them to reach the next level? Right, moving on to Bournemouth. Bournemouth, they've brought in a few players, none really too notable. I don't really know any of these. Matai Akinboni. I've definitely butchered that. But from DC United, it says for 1.5 million. No idea who he is, to be fair. He might be a good player. Bournemouth is one of those clubs now, similar to Brighton, where they do like to bring in, I don't want to say lower quality players, but under the radar players and try to develop them. So who knows? He could be a good player. A few more players recalled from loan. Julio Soler from Lanús. I'm not even sure what team that is. 6.6 million. Jebison recalled from loan. I've seen him play a few minutes here and there for them so far. And a bunch of players that have been loaned out, including, I've just seen here, Max Aarons to Valencia. That's an interesting one. I remember when he was at Norwich, he was meant to be one of the next up-and-coming right-backs, but he's going to Valencia now. And yeah, just a bunch of other players, very low profile that I'm not really sure about. Philip Billing has also gone to Napoli. That is an interesting one. Maybe he'll push on a little bit like Scott McTominay has in the Italian league over there and revolutionise himself as a player. Who knows? But yeah, Philip Billing on loan to Napoli for the rest of the season. And that will sum up Bournemouth. So no real big names to shout about. Whether the players that they've brought in, will they really have a big role? Who knows? Not the best window for Bournemouth, but did they really need to bring in that many players? They've been doing absolutely excellently in the league, and they've had quite a lot of injuries. You look at their bench, they've got barely any recognised first-team players there. It's mostly just academy boys. So I think they did probably need some bolstering up. And so whether these players here, who, once again, I don't really know much about, can provide that, then I guess that will be good for them. But yeah, all in all, nothing to shout about. Bournemouth, we're going to give them a 3 out of 10 for this window. Next up, we're going to fly through this because it's Brentford. They've not really brought in many players either. They've recalled a couple players who I've got no idea who they are, from St Mirren and Exeter from loan. That being Ellery, Balcombe and Tristan Kramer. No idea who either of those are. But yeah, they've both been recalled from loan. And Michael Coyote from Fiorentina has been brought in on loan. No idea who he is, but there is also a 13.5 million option to buy for Brentford if they choose to do that at the end of the season. And then just a couple of what I'd imagine to be young players out on loan, although including Roslev as well, who has had quite a key role for Brentford over the last couple of years. He's just gone to Wolfsburg on loan for the end of the season. Well, that's pretty much it. No one else to shout about Brentford. Not much business done in this window. We'll give them a 2 out of 10. Right, moving on to Brighton. And Brighton they've had quite a busy window, to be fair. More so with the players that they've transferred out rather than the players that they've brought in. But they have brought in a few players. First of which, a player called Stefanos Simas from Nuremberg. No idea who he is. It's an undisclosed fee as well, so hard to tell by his price tag how good we can estimate him to be. But as we've known of Brighton over the years, they love to bring in these players, develop them, sell them on, like we've seen plenty of times. The likes of Caicedo, McAllister, and so on, the list goes there. But yeah, who knows? Maybe one of these players will be the next one. I have a feeling Baleba will probably be gone by the end of the season. I have a feeling he will get a move to a big club, but that is for the summer. A couple more players that they've brought in: Iran Kashin of Derby. Any of you Championship viewers, I believe Derby are in a Championship, and he's come for 9 million. Don't really know much about him. Diego Gomez from Inter Miami. That's an interesting one, from the MLS for 11 million. trying to think about how many players in recent years have come from the MLS and been good. I remember from Newcastle, what was his name? He was in my fantasy team for a while. The Paraguayan player. What was his name? I'll put his picture up here, and if I remember, then I'll say it later on in the video. But yeah, not much talent has really come from the MLS over the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. And then just a couple of players recalled from loan. Now, players that they've sold or left on loan. The main one, of course, Evan Ferguson to West Ham. But I'll say that for when we get to West Ham. Then couple other players. I imagine these are all young players. All in all, they've sent out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players out. Only one of them a sale. 3 of them, 5 of them sales. So they've sold quite a few players. The rest out on loan. Enciso to Ipswich. That's a good signing for Ipswich, I think. I've always liked Enciso, but yeah, we'll get onto that when we talk about Ipswich. Jakub Moder as well. For those of you who don't know, I am Polish. I always rated this guy. Hasn't worked out for him at Brighton. He tore his ACL, I believe, last season or the season before that. I can't remember. And he just never really got his chance. But I think that there is a player there in him. He's gone to Feyenoord for only 3.2 million. So yeah, good luck to him. And that is pretty much it. Nothing more to say for Brighton. Overall, they've brought in a few players who, like I say, we have no idea if they'll be good or not. But seeing how Brighton have done in the past, you can imagine a couple of these players to play their role. That is for sure. But yeah, they've been much more active with the players that they have sold. All in all, we'll give Brighton a 5 out of 10. Right, moving on to Chelsea. Chelsea, players that they've brought in, the most notable one probably is they've recalled Trevor Chalobah from loan at Palace. Chalobah, when he was at Chelsea, I remember at the start of the season, he wasn't being treated very well. They wanted to get rid of him, and then there was some tension over there. I can't remember the exact scenario, but they sent him out on loan eventually. And then they've seen how well he's done at Palace, because he was doing very well at Palace in that 5 at the back system for Glasner. He's been recording for Chelsea now. Yeah, probably should be one of their starting centre backs for the rest of the season. Chelsea have a lot of defenders that have just not cut it for them. Disasi being one of them, of course. He's now gone out on loan. Colwill, I think he's a bit overhyped. I think he's an average defender. He's not all that. Yeah, don't get me wrong, he's not a bad player, but he's not like an elite level centre back that you probably do need if you want to be competing for the title. So they do need to strengthen in those centre back positions, I think. Trevor Chalobah, can he be that centre back going forward? I mean, he's still young. Who knows? Anyway, he's been brought in. David Fofana, is that the striker? Let me quickly check. I think it is. He's been recalled. That's an interesting one. From Giuseppe. Right, looking at his stats, what he's done there in the Super League, he's had 9 matches and 2 goals, and that's it. Whether, I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, that is a strange one. Yeah, I don't really see how he gets into the team at any point ahead of Jackson, who, to be fair, he got a slight injury the other day against West Ham. And they've also got that young striker from Chelsea. So maybe, just in case of injury problems, he's been brought in. But yeah, those are the transfers in for Chelsea. If we move on to the transfers out, the main one, I think, or a couple main ones anyway, João Felix to AC Milan on loan. Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. It's just not worked out for him at Chelsea so far. He's struggled to get into the first team. He's a real good player, I think. And yeah, I think the issue with Chelsea is with them having so many players, such deep squad depth. It is hard for any player. You have to be very, very good week in, week out. For Maresca, of course, to start you every week. I think Sancho's been good this season for them. But if I look at Madueke, do I think that Madueke is a better player than Felix? I'm not too convinced. Maybe just because he is left-footed, so he can cut in. But yeah, I feel like he's been a little bit hard done by there. But alone at Milan could help him a lot. He is still pretty young. I mean, it seems like he's been around for ages. If we just double check, how old is he? Oh, he's 25 to be fair. That is still quite young. not his prime anywhere near yet. So yeah, maybe that loan will be helpful. Other players out: Renato Vega to Juve. We've only seen bits and pieces of him there. Chukwuemeka to Dortmund. That could be interesting. Following that Sancho path. I've always liked him as a player, Chukwuemeka. I think he's a good player from what I've seen of him. So Dortmund haven't been great this season. Maybe he can help them with their attacking options. Another big one, Ben Chilwell to Palace. Yeah, that is an interesting one because, of course, we all know about Ben Chilwell's injury struggles over the years. But will he be able to? Will he be able to play with that quality that we've seen him play with? Bearing in mind he's barely played over the last 3 years or something. It's been crazy, really. He's barely played for such a long time. It might be a bit of a big ask to bring him in and get him straight into that Glasner system. Although, having said that, like I say, Glasner, that is, he likes to play that 5 at the back. And of course, we know Ben Chilwell from his days at Leicester. He is the best. His best position is as a wing back. I've never really thought of him as a great defender by any means, and I always thought that in a back four he could struggle a little bit. But in a back five, where he has that license to get forward much more and not have to focus too much on the defensive side as if he was in a back four, that will be an interesting one. He could be a good signing there for Palace. And yeah, that is pretty much it for Chelsea. Of course, we already spoke about Disasi. So all in all, for Chelsea, they've loaned out quite a lot of players, but they've not really brought much in apart from loan recalls. Actually, every single one of their players in this window have been recalls. But do they really need any signings at the moment? I don't think that they do. So I don't think any Chelsea fans can have any complaints. I think the main complaint I would have if I was a Chelsea fan is Felix going out on loan. I would have liked to see him play a lot more. So all in all, nothing to shout about. We'll give Chelsea a 5 out of 10. Okay, I've just realised I've been talking for half an hour already somehow. So I'm going to try and get through this a lot quicker. Palace next. Main options. Of course, we know about Ben Chilwell. I've already talked about him. I think he could be good for them if, and that is the key point, if he can stay fit. If he can, could be a good option. Ben Chilwell to Palace, loan end of the season. We've also brought in Roman Esse, I'm not sure who that is, and Malcolm Ebiway. I've definitely butchered that also, from Oxford. That's a recalled player from loan. And some of the players out include, of course, Chalobah. He got recalled. Rob Holding to Sheffield United. Rob Holding's finally found his level. No disrespect to him, but he robbed, quite literally, a living at Arsenal. I don't know how he survived for so long. So he's been loaned out to Sheffield for the remainder of the season. And Jeff Schlupp as well has been loaned out to Celtic, which I guess then in that case makes sense why they've brought in Ben Chilwell. Sorry, that's definitely a like-for-like type of switch. So all in all, Palace, I think Chilwell could be good for them. Nothing else really to shout about. We'll give Crystal Palace also a 5 out of 10. Okay, moving on to Everton. Nothing much to shout about. They've brought in Carlos Alcaraz from Flamengo. Not sure who that is, to be honest, although I think his name rings a bell. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he used to play for Southampton. That may have been a few years ago. And Tyler Onyagoyo, also butchered that name, from Stockport, recalled from no idea. He also sent out a couple of academy boys, I think, there. So nothing much to shout about for Everton either. We'll give them a 2 out of 10. Fulham, likewise, only 3 players in total have been involved in anything. 2 players recalled from loan and 1 player sent out for loan, none of which I know about. Probably all academy boys or something. I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, they've not been active. We'll give them also a 2 out of 10. Ipswich next. Ipswich, of course, they're looking to stay up this season. It's looking more and more difficult, especially with that loss to Southampton over the weekend. That will be a huge blow to Ipswich as they look to stay up. They've looked to reinforce and bolster up. Will it be enough to keep them up? I'm not sure. Some of the notable players, Godfrey, who of course played for Everton for quite a few years. He's been loaned in from Atalanta, who I had actually no idea even played for them there in the first place. Jadon Philogene, who we already spoke about, 20 million. Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of him. I can't really make a fair assumption about how good he is. He looks all right on the eye. Whether he can really help Ipswich to stay up, I'm not sure if he's that type of calibre of player. However, Julio Enciso, should I say, from Brighton on loan, I like that signing a lot. I think he can really help Ipswich. If they are to stay up, he could be key to that in creating a lot of chances. He's a very high quality player, I think, and Brighton letting him out on loan, I'm not sure if that was the right idea for them, because you look at the Brighton team this season, they've not been great this season. They have not been great this season. And genuinely, I think that he's Enciso good enough to be starting for them. Of course, that ACL injury for him did not help at all, but he is still a quality player, and I think he can help Ipswich. If they are to stay up, I think he'll be key to that. And that is pretty much it for Ipswich. A couple other names, but no one really to shout about. I like Ben Godfrey coming in. I like Enciso coming in. Philogene could be good. All in all, I think we can give Ipswich a 7 out of 10. It's always hard in January, especially as a club that's just been promoted, to get much done, because we know the budget isn't always the biggest. But I think for what they've done, they've brought in some decent players. Whether it will be enough to keep them up, we don't know. But I think they've had a pretty decent window. But moving on to Leicester. Not much to shout about here at all. Leicester, another team who I just can't see them staying up this season, unfortunately. They've brought in Woyo Koulibaly, not sure who that is, from Parma for 1.9 million. And they've sold someone called Tom Cannon, not sure who he is, loaned out a couple of players. So yeah, not really done anything there. Leicester, they do need some help. Honestly, yeah, this season they're not going to stay up, so yeah, they'll go back down to the Championship. I think they got to wait until this next summer to really bolster their squad. They've not done enough now. Regardless, I feel like signing players at this point for big money, I don't think it's worth it. They're probably going down anyway. So yeah, not a great window for Leicester. Although even then, they could have brought in a lot of players, and I still don't think they would have stayed up. So all in all, nothing really to say for Leicester. We'll give them a 1 out of 10. Moving on to Liverpool, the big title contenders, the favourites to win the league this season. They've brought in nobody. Do they really need to bring in anyone? That is the question. You look at their squad and you probably think they don't. They've got pretty good squad depth everywhere they look. Goalkeeper-wise, Alisson, I think they've got the best number 2 in the league in Kelleher. I think he's a really quality keeper. Right backs, they've got Bradley there for Trent. Although Trent has picked up a slight injury, I believe. So Conor Bradley will definitely have to feature a lot more. Centre-back options, they've got them there. Midfield, their midfield has been quality this season so far. I think Gravenberch has been a real good and underrated player this season for Liverpool. I think he's been key to helping them be top of the league. Honestly, I think he's a quality player, and he's really starting to shine now after Slot. Their front line, they've got plenty of options. Jota coming back from injury now, that's big for them. Salah, he's been scoring the goals this season like always. I don't think that they really have needed to do anything in January, and they haven't. They've loaned out of a bunch of players, not really any notable ones. So all in all, Liverpool, they've not done anything really, but do they really need to do anything? I don't think so. So all in all, we'll give them a 3 out of 10. Right, ManCity, the club that's spent the most. To no surprise, they've been absolutely dreadful this season. They got slapped up 5-1 by Arsenal on the weekend. And yeah, what does Pep do? He needs more players to try and help him out. Those include Kusanov from Lens for 33.5 million, who we saw to start against Chelsea, which was, for me, really, really strange. I mean, the young lad, I think, he's like 20 or something. He can't even speak English, the bloke. Pep's just thrown him into the deep end against Chelsea. Any player would be nervous to straight away start for a team like City, but especially to put him into a game against Chelsea when their season's not been going great. If City have been playing great this season, then sure, you can experiment a little bit like this, but I feel like that wasn't wasn't a smart decision by Pep. The player himself, I've seen bits and pieces of him at Lens. He looks all right. Definitely a player, I think, for the future for them. But 33.5 million, that is quite expensive for a player who we'll see how much he features this season. They've had their fair share of injury problems at the back, City, to be fair. So that's probably the reasoning behind that one. But yeah, Kusanov, 33.5 million to City. Next big one, the most expensive player signed this window, Omar Mamouche. My apologies, Omar Mamouche. Will he be part of that Frankfurt curse that we've seen so many times over the years with players like Jovic or Haller, who've scored plenty of goals for Frankfurt in one season? They've made a big move and it's just not quite worked out for them. Mamouche, he was having an excellent season at Frankfurt so far, and of course many teams were eyeing him up, and City are the ones that managed to get their hands on him for 59 million. He's looked lively. It will take him some time to fit into that side. Whether he's worth 60 million, that's the question. City have overpaid a lot for plenty of players over the years, and I just have a sly suspicion that he might be one of those. Looking at like Grealish, he hasn't really cut it for City for the money that they paid for him. Savinho's starting to look good now. If you look at some of the other players that they've brought in, I can't think of many on the top of my head. But yeah, Mamouche, that would be an interesting one. He looks like a decent player. Whether he can do it for City, that would be interesting to see. Right, the next and final big player that they've brought in. Actually, they've brought in two more. One more, Vitor Reis, who I'm not really sure about. But 30 million they've paid for this guy from Palmeiras, so from the Brazilian league, that is. If I quickly have a look at who this actually is. He's a 19-year-old centre-back. That's interesting. So they've gone for two centre-backs this window. Yeah, don't really know much about him. 30 million they've paid for him. Yeah, we'll see how good he is, but don't really have much to say about that. Nico Gonzalez is the next big name. 50 million. They've spent a lot this window, City. Honestly, a lot of money. Midfielder from Porto, Spanish. I'll be very honest, I've not seen too much of him. I don't know too much about him, but they've paid big money for him. Clearly, City see something in him. How old is he? He is 23 years old, so he's still very young, of course. Yeah, Nico Gonzalez for City. I think that they have needed and they have lacked midfielding options this season. Kovacic just hasn't been cutting it for them. That Rodri absence, of course, very big. So yeah, no surprise to me that they have bolstered their midfield this window. But yeah, Nico Gonzalez, 50 million. Not sure what to make about that one. We'll see. Right, players out. The most notable one, Kyle Walker. He is gone. He's gone from City. He's gone to Milan on loan. That will be an interesting one. I think this is the first time he's going to be playing abroad. Yeah, City, of course. I mean, Walker's he's been a great player for them. You can't deny that. When he made that move over from Spurs, he's won everything you can win. You can see he's starting to decline now, so not too surprised about that. Maybe the fact that he has been or that he has left during January, that is a little bit surprising. You'd have thought, he would stay to the end of the season. But yeah, Kyle Walker out on loan to Milan as the most notable player out. All in all, City, I mean, they've spent a lot. Whether these players can really do it for them, we shall see. Yeah, I mean, they've been the big spenders this window. So City, we've got to give them, I think I'll give them an 8 out of 10 for this window. Whether the players that they've actually brought in are worth their price, I guess that is what we've got to wait and see. But they have definitely been busy this January. Man United next. A couple players they've brought in. Aiden Heaven from Arsenal. Of course, he was part of that Hale End Academy team. He played a lot with the likes of Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri. I saw bits and pieces of him during pre-season. He looks like one of those centre-backs that seems to be quite composed on the ball. Of course, very early to tell, but he could be a player in the future. He's gone to United. From an Arsenal's perspective, we can't really blame him. It will be difficult for him to break into the team over the next few years with the options at centre-back that we've got, so you can't really blame him for wanting to make a move. Although then you've got to ask the question, is he really going to play for United? But yeah, Aiden Heaven to United. their big signing this window has been Patrick Dorgu from Lecce for 30 million. I actually don't know much about him. He's Danish. I believe he's a left back or something like that. Yeah, he's a left wing back. He's 20 years old. Yeah, I mean, Amorim, he likes that back five system. He needs wing backs, and yeah, Dallo, he's been good for United over the few years, but he's not a left wing back. He is right footed. He's much more comfortable on the right side. So I feel like they definitely needed a left sided player, with Luke Shaw just being constantly injured. He only really gets back into any sort of fitness when he seems to play for England. So yeah, Patrick Dorgu, don't really know much about him, but he seems like the type of profile and the type of player that United have needed. Players out, of course, we've spoken about the main one, Marcus Rashford out on loan, and also Anthony to Real Betis. It's just not worked out for him at all. After that first goal that he scored against Arsenal in one of the opening days of the season, United thought they've really got a good player. 100 million or something they paid for him. It's just not worked out for him at all. But yeah, Anthony out to Real Betis on loan. Maybe he can turn his career around there. Moving on to Newcastle. Players in. Absolutely no one. They've not brought anyone in. Do they need players? You look at their team. They've been pretty good this season. They've had a few fixtures or a few results, should I say, that have been quite surprising. But all in all, I think Newcastle, they've been all right. Of course, Isaac's been firing for them. You look at their defence, maybe a goalkeeper, but Dubravka's, he's always been all right as their number 2, as Nick Pope is still out. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think that they've really needed too many signings. And players out, notable ones, none really. Lloyd Kelly has gone to Juventus. Actually, that is a bit of a strange one. I feel like he played for Bournemouth a season or two ago. Isaac Hayden out to Portsmouth, of course, ex-Arsenal boy. Yeah, nothing else really there. Newcastle, not really active. We'll give them a 2 out of 10. Nottingham Forest next. They've also been another team that have been excellent this season. It's working out for them. All those signings that they've made over the last few years, especially after they got promoted to the league, it's finally starting to pay off for them. They've not really brought anyone in. They've brought in Wayne Hennessy on a free, probably as a number 2 or a number 3. Players out, Ward-Prowse to West Ham. I forgot that he was even at Forest. Honestly, I thought he was just at West Ham and he was injured or something. But yeah, he's gone back to West Ham. Clearly, apart from that, they've not really done anything. So all in all, Forest, whether they've needed to do anything again, once again, I don't think they really needed to. So we'll give them a standard 3 out of 10. Moving on to the last few players. Southampton, a team that no doubt is going to get relegated this season. I thought like they could bring in Mbappe and they'd still get relegated. So, yeah, I mean, players in Wellington. I remember Wellington. Did he play for Newcastle? I'm not sure, unless that was a different one. From Sao Paulo, he's come in. Couple of other players that I just don't know anything about. Players that have gone out on loan as well. Adam Armstrong's gone to West Brom. Maxwell Cornet. That is, I did not even know that he was at Southampton. He's gone back to West Ham. And Ben Burton Diaz has been loaned out to Sheffield. Although I thought that he was already a player at Sheffield. That is a strange one. But yeah, Southampton not really brought anyone in good enough that was gonna keep them up. They're getting relegated anyway. Not much to say about Southampton. We'll give them a 3 out of 10. Tottenham next. So Antonin Kinski, goalkeeper. They've needed a goalkeeper since Vicario's been injured for a very long time. And he looked all right. So I think that's a good sign for them. 12.5 million from Slavia Prague. Other players include Dane Scarlett, recalled from loan, who got his goal the other day in the was it the Conference League or was it a cup match? I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I mean the injury problems that Spurs have had this season. Yeah, it was clear that they needed to bring some players in. And say what you want about Ange, if you think he's a bad manager, the truth is Tottenham, even as an Arsenal fan, I can admit they have been very, very, very unfortunate with injuries this season. I mean, their injured 11 is probably better than their current 11 that they can put out. So, yeah, it's been unfortunate for Ange. I don't think they'll sack him. I think they need a complete restructure in the summer. Their board is just a mess. I feel like yeah, I don't know. I think they've missed out their main chance of winning anything over the last decade or so. I mean, they had Harry Kane, one of the best strikers in world football, along with Son, who in his prime, he's getting a little bit worse now, but he was still a decent player a season ago. I feel like they've really missed out there, and it's unfortunate for Spurs fans. They didn't win anything in that era, and I just don't see them doing anything over the next few years. Of course, they're in the Carabao Cup now, the semi-final, so maybe they can get a result against Liverpool. Who knows? But other players that they've brought in of note, Matthias Tell from Bayern Munich on loan. Of course, he was linked with plenty of clubs: United, Arsenal. I can't remember who else. There was a few other ones. He's going to be a strange one because he initially did not want to go to Spurs. So whether his heart will be in on that transfer, that will be an interesting one to see how it plays out. I think he will be a professional and will give it his all. But yeah, he's made it pretty clear, I think, that he does not want to stick around any longer than he needs to in Tottenham. So that loan himself, if we look at the player that he is, I've not seen too much of him. He looks quite rash. I'll be honest. He doesn't look like a very complete player at the moment. Of course, he is very young. He has got a goal in him. He does prefer to shoot than pass, so expect that in the views you are looking to get bets down. He's definitely a player to look out for if he does start to get quite a few shots. And Kevin Danso on loan from Lens. I feel like I've heard his name before. Can't remember exactly where. But yeah, they've brought in a few players and just a few young players loaned out. All in all, not the worst January for Tottenham. They've brought in some good players, so I feel like we'll give them, comparatively to the rest of the league, we'll give them a 6 out of 10. Okay, moving on to West Ham, the most notable one. They've not been that active this January, but there have been a few players. So Evan Ferguson on loan. I feel like that could be a great signing for them. They've needed a striker since bringing in, what was his name? The German guy. What is his name? He scored a few goals in the Euros. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's not quite gone for him. He's had his injuries as well. And yeah, I mean, they played Bowen up front the other day against Chelsea, so it's clear they needed a striker. Ferguson, I think he's a very good player. I feel like a move was imminent because he's not really been getting those minutes at Brighton. So it'll be interesting to see how he does at West Ham. I think he's a good player, so I hope it does work out for him. But yeah, Evan Ferguson on loan to West Ham for the rest of the season. Along with Ward-Prowse, who we also talked about, he actually got recalled from loan. So that explains that one. And Cornet, who we briefly spoke about, who got recalled from Southampton, has actually been sent back out to Genoa. So I'm sure Cornet, the player himself, won't be complaining going from Southampton to Genoa. But yeah, West Ham, all in all, I think Ferguson a very good signing, and for that reason, I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10 for this window. Moving on to the final team of this window, and that is Wolves. Wolves have brought in 3 players. They've spent a total of, if my maths is good enough, 42.6 million. They've brought in Emmanuel Agbadu from Reims, 16.6 million. Don't really know too much about him, to be completely honest. Nasser Jigger, not sure who that is, from Red Star Belgrade for 10 million. And Marshall Munetsi, also from Reims, 16 million. So they've signed 2 players from Reims. I don't know if they've got some sort of partnership going on there. But yeah, I'll be completely honest, don't know anything about any of those players. And they've sent out just a couple of players on loan. Wolves, I mean, they'll be fine. I'm 99% sure that they'll stay up this season. I don't see them getting relegated by any means. So I think the real work with their new manager will be done in the summer. But yeah, you can see they've clearly looked to bolster up their team a little bit, improve on that squad depth with the players that they've brought in. And so for that reason, despite me knowing anything about them, we'll give them a 5 out of 10 for this January window. Right, that completes and concludes all of the transfers that have been done in this January window. The most notable ones, we'll go back to Arsenal. The lack of an attacking player, all that come back to bite them. City investing big, bringing in players. Villa looking to push themselves back into the top 4 with a couple signings there. Ferguson, I think he'll be one to watch out for. at West Ham, also Enciso at Ipswich. I'll be interested to see how that works out for him. But yeah, that is all for this video. Let me know down in the comments whether you are happy with your team's window, any of the players that, or any opinions that you agree or disagree with what I've said in this video. Let me know down in the comments. But that's all I've got for today. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you for the next one.